That sound could mean only one thing. I'm making some Quad Cortex neural captures today. Hey there, I'm Dan, the self-proclaimed Lonely Rocker. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I'm getting back into some Quad Cortex content.
You QC people, you still around?
Well, anyways, I've been evolving the recording process here in my studio. I've been adding more and more gear, and I'm kind of going a little more old school with more analog gear. Recently acquiring a beautiful ENGL 4x12 double XL. What I ultimately want to do today is I'm going to be capturing one of the ultimate gems here in my collection. That's the EVO TM50. That's a US built, all hand-wired tube amplifier. That's the Tom Monda signature. And I've had some requests for this amplifier, so I'm gonna create a few captures, and if you stick around a little later in the video, I'm gonna share with you how you can grab those captures for yourself. So now, one of the challenges, at least that I discovered here, because I'm using a cabinet and I'm also capturing with multiple microphones, is that the Quad Cortex only has one input. Now there's a couple of simple solutions to that, but I discovered there's a couple of different ways to achieve that depending on what gear you have available. You might not have to run out and buy something. I actually almost did, and I'll talk about that. So before we get into the technical stuff, I want to share with you what those tones sound like, the captures that I made from the TM50, using of course the Quad Cortex, and playing through this is this beautiful Balaguer Espada. This is my first Balaguer. I did an unboxing of this. I'm going to be planning to do a full review of this guitar, but as has been customary as of late, I just start using the equipment in videos, and by the time I get to that video, it will be pretty comprehensive. Anyways, let's check out those tones, and we'll talk about it on the other side. Oh, that sounded so good. I absolutely love that amplifier, and I'm really excited to share. There's gonna be 3 different captures I'm gonna share with you, the 3 that were in that track. We'll get to that a little bit later. So I wanna talk about the signal chain here. And again, this is just to put some ideas in your head, because capturing multiple microphones into the Quad Cortex requires some additional equipment. Now, the simplest solution would be a mixer. Now, I would advise that this should be a pretty decent mixer, because if you've got a great amplifier and a great cabinet, some good microphones, and you're running it into a cheap mixer, it might defeat the purpose of having all that great stuff. But a lot of the major brands, good quality mixers, they do make small format ones. I almost ran out to buy one, but I found another solution that actually works. If you actually have a spare audio interface lying around, I found a solution for that. And also, not necessary, because this method will work without this extra piece of gear that I'm about to share with you, is I recently added a Neve style preamp to my studio. I'm actually going to be doing a full demo of this as well, much like the Balaguer. I'm going to be using it here for a little bit, and then we're going to do a full comprehensive video. But this is the Warm Audio WA273 EQ. So it's a 2-channel preamp with EQ. That's just opened up a whole range of possibilities of tones, and can't wait to get into that with you guys. So we're not going to talk about it too much today, but this solution will actually apply whether you have a preamp or not. I've got a Focusrite Claret 4 Pre Thunderbolt audio interface, and that really did the trick. So let me show you the signal chain, and I'll explain to you how this all works. So of course, it begins and ends with the Quad Cortex itself. Now, this is not a deep dive on the capturing process. I think there's a ton of content out there, and the QC, it's pretty clear, it takes you through the steps. But if I have anything to offer that story, just let me know in the comment section, and I'd be happy to consider that topic for a future video on this channel. But In simple terms, we take our guitar, we plug it into the input, and then the output has to go to the source that we're capturing, that being our amplifier, and then that has to return back to the Quad Cortex. Now, if you're using a load box or a line out from the amplifier, that's a single cable, that's easy, that plugs directly into the Quad Cortex itself. But in this case, we want to capture the amp through a cabinet with two microphones. So this is where the bottleneck is. So I'm going to discuss that. But from here, we need to head over to the star of the show, and that's the amplifier that we're capturing. In this case, as mentioned, this is the EVO Amps TM50. I can't say enough about how much I love this amplifier. This video is not sponsored. They're not asking me to say this. I absolutely love what this amp brings to my studio. These are hand built in the United States. I know a lot of you are based in the United States. Check out their website, see what they're all about. The guy that builds this amplifier is an absolute legend in the amp world, from modifications to repairs, and now making some amazing amplifiers. So definitely check them out if you're into really cool amps. You won't be disappointed. Anyways, the way my room is set up right now is my cabinet is in another room. So that affords me the luxury of hearing what I'm about to capture or record without influence from the cabinet itself. That's never an ideal situation when it's blazing in the room. So I can make my tweaks here. As I said, we're feeding that from the Quad Cortex so we can check our levels and everything on the Quad Cortex itself. Just super convenient. Anyways, we need to get this amp to the cabinet, and that's all the way over here inside of this makeshift bunker made with acoustic panels and blankets. We've got the ENGL 4x12 double XL. Now this would be a great time for someone to try and punk me. Well, if I wasn't the lonely rocker and no one else here knew how to use the gear. Anyways, the amp is about 30 feet away in the other room, and that's about snaking around 50 feet to get here. And to do that, I've got a really long speaker cable, and that's actually a summer cable, speaker cable. These are awesome cables. Again, not sponsoring this video, just want to mention that. I've had a lot of great results with that. No noise or interference. 50 feet is quite a run. And also there's two more summer cables, the mic cables that have to go back to the studio, because we've got two microphones here. Both from Sennheiser, the E906 and the MD421 Compact. The 906 is sort of on the edge of the cone, or the dust cap, where it meets the edge of the cone. And the 421 Compact is a little towards the middle there to capture a little bit of the bottom end. And we're going to blend those two microphones ultimately to make the capture. So we need to bring it all back here. Now I'm receiving those microphones through this microphone preamp. Now we can achieve this without the preamp. I'll touch on this in a second in case you've been thinking about this, but you can go directly into an audio interface. Touch on that in a second. So those two cables that you saw all the way over there are coming in right here. This is a 2-channel microphone preamp, and we've got some built-in EQ. This is allowing me to tweak what's coming from the amp and just really sweeten it up a little bit, and ultimately is what I use to make those captures. So hopefully you can enjoy those. Now, the output from this preamp has to get into our interface. Now, we do have 2 channels on this particular preamp, and we have levels for both of those channels, but there's no mix feature here. They're coming out as individual channels, just as if we were taking 2 individual microphones and going directly into our audio interface. So basically, this is where the setup is the same. If you're not using a preamp, you can connect those microphones directly to whatever audio interface you have, as long as it has a minimum, of course, of 2 inputs. Now, one thing I do want to mention, because I'm using an external preamp, a cool feature of my interface here, which is the Focusrite Claret 4 Pre, you have 4 inputs on the front, but those go through the Focusrite preamps with the air feature and all that. If you're using an external preamp, you don't want to go into another preamp. You're not going to get favorable results. But what's cool about this particular interface, there's an additional 4 inputs on the back, but these are fixed level line inputs with balanced connections. So I can take the output from the preamp and go into those inputs. This way we're bypassing any additional preamps that are available on the front. Now again, depending on what interface that you're using, you may not have that feature, but if you're not using a preamp, like I said, you can go right into the interface directly. Now at this point, we've converged, whether you're using a preamp or whether you're taking your microphones and going right into the audio interface. Virtually every interface I've ever used, at least from main brand, we've got Focusrite, I've used IK Multimedia, I've used Audient, I've used a whole bunch. They all come with software, and we often ignore that software. Once it's working, if you're recording into your DAW, generally you're focused on the features over there. Many people don't even look at that software. But one of the features of a lot of that software, I can't vouch for yours because I don't know what you're using, but I have checked out the majors and they can all do this. You can create custom mixes. So what I've done here, regardless of the fact that I've used a preamp, ultimately I'm ending up into my interface with 2 individual signals. Now, I was able to create a balance with the preamp, but I wasn't able to blend those 2 together. If you don't have a preamp, you can actually set levels inside the software that drives your audio interface. And once there, you can create a mono mix. You can send it out in stereo or you can send it out in mono. If you switch it to mono, it's going to sum those two signals to the same channel. If you don't have any external mixing capabilities, you can set some levels inside of your software and send it out as mono. So now with that single cable, you can take an output from your audio interface and you can plug that into the Quad Cortex, and suddenly we've merged our two microphones. And lastly, we can proceed with our capture. Now up here, this is the Focusrite control software. As I said, all audio interfaces have something similar. I created a very simple preset here. Now I'm coming in through inputs 5 and 6 on my interface. If you're coming in, let's say on 1 and 2, if you have a simple interface, you would just set up a preset here with inputs 1 and 2. And all I had to do, there's a button here for stereo. I turn that off and suddenly this is in mono. Then I can take a single output from the interface and then I can run that directly into the Quad Cortex. Your software might look a little bit different, but all of the ones that I used can do this. So make sure to look into that if you do have an audio interface, because you may have everything you need sitting in your house right now to make a multiple microphone capture. Anyways, we've gone through all of this. Obviously a lot of technical details here that I kind of glossed over. If you want me to dive in deeper about any of the concepts here, I'd be happy to do that. If there was enough interest in that, just let me know in the comment section. And if there's enough interest, I will consider making that video. Anyways, you heard the tones in the mix that I did before, but I'll give you a little sample of those 3 presets so you can hear what they sound like, and then I'll let you know how you can grab them. Well, it's not rocket science. I'm sure you figured out that these captures are going to be on the Cortex Cloud. So you can look me up there, Lonely Rocker, all one word. I just started populating my account with some captures and presets, but the EVO captures that I did today, you're going to find them up there. There's a preset there that has the 3 captures in one preset using the scene feature, but I'll put the individual captures up there as well. Grab whatever you like, and then if you enjoyed them, please let me know what you think about them. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it. Would love to answer your questions. That's what the comment section is for. If you want to support the channel, some of the gear that you've seen here today, I do have affiliate links in the description. It doesn't cost you anything, but it certainly supports my venture here and it keeps me going, and I really appreciate that. But if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And while you're down there, while we are talking about the Quad Cortex, what was my first 30 days like for someone who waited a couple of years to get a Quad Cortex? A little bit different. I'm gonna pop it right here if you wanna check it out. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. I'll catch you in the next one.